and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. I'm going to be straight with you. I forgot to record a video earlier today. I haven't had time and I don't have time in the afternoon, so this one's going to be pretty quick. Probably no editing, might do a quick thumbnail or something like that, but this one will be fairly short. The retro video game I want to talk about is Skyward Sword for the Nintendo Wii, and yes, this is a retro game at this point. It's 2 generations back, 2.5, since Nintendo's always been on that half generation, and we had the HD ports to the Nintendo Switch, which is the version I'll primarily be talking about. I'll talk about some of the differences between the two. Primarily, the best thing about Skyward Sword on the Switch is the fact that you don't have to play it with the Joy-Cons detached like you had on the Nintendo Wii. You didn't have the motion controls to worry about. Now you can utilize the right stick to move Link's sword, which is very intuitive and works very well. I kind of oscillated between the two. I primarily stuck to the handheld version because I played it a lot on the go. It's typically how I play my Switch, and I do like the new controls. I think it's really nice. The original had some problems with even with the Wii Motion Plus. You didn't have a whole lot of freedom to hit. You're mostly just wildly swinging your hand until you happen to get a hit on the enemies that you're trying to attack. But I did like the idea that the enemies kind of try and block your swing, and you have to be more intentful with what you do with your sword. And I think that's very cool. Remixing how combat works is essential for the Zelda series because a lot of the games are a little bit stale in terms of combat. So this did spice it up in some meaningful ways. It didn't always work the way you wanted it to, but in the HD version it works much more consistently than in the Wii one. So that's the biggest change for me personally. It also looks a little bit better. I do like the original's art style. I think it's really nice, but I like how they touched up a lot of the things, made it a little bit more vibrant, more colorful. It really works for this theme. Chronologically, this is the first game in the Zelda timeline. It gives a lot of lore, which is fantastic. I love the origins of Ganon and Ganondorf himself. You get Demise as the main villain here. Spoilers here, sorry about that. I won't tell much about it here, but you get Demise, which is the first incarnation of Ganondorf here, which is really cool. A really phenomenal boss. And the bosses in this game are actually pretty good too. The best thing about this game is that combat is pretty solid. The dungeons are really fun, like Zelda games typically are. The items are pretty cool, and it's a really fun game to complete. It's a really fun game to get to the finish line. It is very long, and the biggest criticism I have for Skyward Sword, that it is a great game with just so much padding. It's just so poorly paced. That's the biggest issue with Skyward Sword. You have a ton of flying sections. You fly on these giant birds because you're up in a city in the sky. It's actually a really cool setting. Once you finally can go down to the ground area, you ditch the bird, and then you have your classic Zelda traversal. It feels very Twilight Princess in the way that you traverse things. But up in the sky with the bird, I do not enjoy the flying mechanic at all. I think it's really monotonous. I think it takes way too long. I don't like being on the birds. I'm glad that they ditched that going forward, that we've never seen it again, because really it's just not a fun mechanic. I think the traversal in the Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom is infinitely more fun than these dang birds. They are a cool companion. They do play into the overall lore and the story the game is trying to tell. The story again is fantastic. I really enjoy what they did with it. It's probably one of the better stories that they've told. That was the most engrossing thing for me playing this game. As much as it was tedious at times, I felt myself getting sucked into the lore. I really wanted to learn more about all of this, the origination of this Hero of Time here, the Link being the hero and Zelda being the other Triforce holder, and then of course Demise here with the Triforce of Power. This is the origination of all those things, and so it is very intriguing and very compelling. And I really loved finishing this game. It just took me quite a while, several restarts to get going because it was just too much. The biggest problem is, again, the flying sections take way too long. There's some fetch quest type missions that are not fun. The side quests really aren't enjoyable to me either. I didn't like collecting things nearly as much as any other Zelda game. And then there's the fact that you only have 3 main areas on the ground, and you revisit them once a piece. So you go to them one time, and then you go back to them another time. And there are some remix. You're going to different areas, so it's fine, but they didn't give you a whole lot of variety, and it's just a little bit unfortunate in that regard. I wish they had some more interesting places to go to and instead of rehashing an area you've already been to. And again, it's just poorly paced. A lot of the times it feels like you're just taking forever to get from point A to point B, or you're backtracking to go back to this place that you don't want to revisit. Some of the puzzles are not the most intuitive either, so there are a lot of things to gripe about with Skyward Sword, but what makes it and what saves it is the combat, the dungeon design, the boss fights, and the overall lore. This is a really great game. It's just hamstrung by so many other bad things. Fortunately for it, Skyward Sword, it does have so many good things going for it that it does outweigh the negative things, in my opinion. It is still worth completing for Zelda enthusiasts and for people that might just be curious about the Zelda franchise in general. This is not a terrible one to jump into. It's fairly easy. There aren't a whole lot of difficult things. Again, some of the puzzles can be a little confusing, but that's neither here nor there. You might just have to look up a guide if you get stuck. I do think this one is worth checking out if you are a Zelda fan, especially for the lore. If you just go in for the lore, it's absolutely worth your time. I'm going to give Skyward Sword a gold rank here. It's a timid gold here. It could have teetered down to silver, but I think the good outweighs the bad overall. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.